Aloha kakahiyaka once again. My hashtag WeStillMUSTunite, Familia and Ohana. Your Uncle Dwayne Tosa back with you. Mahalo very much for tuning back into the channel. Welcome to today's video. And in today's video, we're going to be taking a look at another piece of legislation that's going through Congress right now. Of course, last video, we took a look at the Domestic Terrorism Prevention Act of 2021. In this video, we're going to be looking at H.R. 127, the Sabika, Sheikh, Firearm Licensing and Registration Act. And if you're wondering, yes, it is another attack on your Second Amendment rights. We're going to be looking at a couple articles, and currently right now we are at ammoland.com. This article posted to the website February 1st, 2021, written by Harold Hutchinson. One sad reality of some of the most extreme anti-Second Amendment legislation is that it will come back in Congress after Congress, as long as its sponsor is still out there. The Sabika Sheikh Firearm Licensing and Registration Act is one of these bills. The legislation was introduced last year in the 116th Congress and covered in Ammoland. It was part of a package of 3 bills introduced by Representative Sheila Jackson Lee, the other 2 being the Santa Fe High School Victims Act and the Kimberly Vaughn Firearms Safe Storage Act. This year, it is labeled under H.R. 127 as opposed to being H.R. 4801 in the last Congress. As you can imagine, this Congress's iteration of the Sabika Sheikh Firearm Licensing and Registration Act is no less onerous and oppressive as its predecessor. If anything, though, some of the provisions now carry new menace given to the constant calls for deprogramming we hear from pundits and cable news outlets of a certain persuasion. Like its iteration in the last Congress, H.R. 127 calls for a psychological evaluation of those who wish to exercise their Second Amendment rights. Our past coverage noted that the evaluation could take a lot of time, given the number of interviews that would have to be scheduled. The concern then was that the creation of more tragedies along the line of Carol Bone, who was murdered by an abusive ex. So, under H.R. 127, anybody who wants to exercise their Second Amendment rights will have to undergo a psychological evaluation. And there's several interviews you got to do with several, psychologists or psychiatrists and officials, that it's a lengthy process. But never before would you have to go through a psychological evaluation just to purchase, own, and operate firearms. But this bill, H.R. 127, is doing exactly that, is introducing exactly that. Now, however, given the desire for deprogramming, we could very well see the psychological evaluation used to target those who dissent from anti-Second Amendment extremism, who raise questions about certain issues, or who even supported former President Trump on other issues. After all, we haven't ever seen government bureaucrats abuse power for political ends before, and even raising that notion might be enough to warrant deprogramming these days. After all, To believe some people, Second Amendment advocacy is domestic terrorism. There it is again. Could you be a domestic terrorist for wanting to exercise your Second Amendment rights? In addition, the climate of media-fueled hate adds another danger. The registration data is going to be made available to the general public. You heard that right. Someone can look up just how many firearms you own, what types of guns you have. It's not just a massive planning aid to would-be thieves, but in an era of social stigmatization, it opens the door to discrimination and blacklisting across a number of areas, including employment and housing. So, under this registration act, you got to register for a license. You got to register all your firearms, the types of ammunition you have for those firearms, and it will be made public. It will be made available to the general public for the public to look at, and that's a security. That's kind of like, there goes your privacy. Yeah, there's little privacy left in this police state of the USA Incorporation Incorporated. There's little privacy left, and here's just another example of that. It's a safety issue, it's a security issue, and it's a privacy issue. This bill is even more unacceptable now than it was when it was introduced in the last Congress. Second Amendment supporters need to contact their representative and senators and politely urge them to oppose this massive infringement that only punishes the law-abiding and instead support legislation like the School Violence Prevention and Mitigation Act of 2019 and the Protecting Communities and Preserving the Second Amendment Act, which actually addresses school security and the misuse of firearms and do not infringe on our rights. Second Amendment supporters should also support the N.R.A.'s Institute for Legislative Action and Political Victory Fund to ensure that the current anti-Second Amendment regimes in the House, Senate, and White House are defeated at the ballot box as soon as possible. Of course, in recent news, the N.R.A. has just declared bankruptcy, but it still doesn't hurt to give them a holler if you would like to see your Second Amendment rights upheld. Now, let us go to LewRockwell.com, and they headlined their article about HR 127 as, "Here it is, the bill to destroy gun ownership." This posted to the website February 1st, 2021. Written by Martin Armstrong from Armstrong Economics. Here we have it. They are going after everyone who has a gun or ammunition. They are deeply concerned about a revolution, and they want to know every person who has a gun or ammunition. The object of this bill will be to identify every person who has a gun. They will be able to revoke a license and confiscate the gun under rules to be created by the Attorney General. President Joe Biden swore he would end the N.R.A. He was not joking. Like a diverse license, once they create this federal license, they effectively limit the Second Amendment, claiming if you obey all their regulations, which they can change at any time, then you have that right. But all such rights are eliminated whenever they say so. Now he takes a look at some of the actual writings of the HR 127, and in section 922 DD 1, it shall be unlawful for any person to possess ammunition that is .50 caliber or greater. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922 DD1 shall be fined not less than $50,000, and not more than $100,000. Imprisoned not less than 10 years, and not more than 20 years, or both. Whoever knowingly violates Section 922 DD2 shall be fined not less than $10,000, and not more than $25,000, imprisoned not less than 1 year, and not more than 5 years, or both. So this is a pretty serious bill, yeah? HR 127. It's pretty serious because, again, you got to register for a license just to own and operate guns you already have and guns you want to own and operate in the future. You have to list all the guns you have, all the ammunition you have, and if it's above a certain caliber, you could get fined and put in prison. And of course, you got to go through psychological evaluation. You got to go through psychological evaluation and the records of of your gun ownership, the guns you own, the ammunition you own, and how many guns you own will be made available to the general public. So this is a serious attack on your Second Amendment rights. And as I'm always saying on this channel, it's your God-given right to defend your God-given life. But this legislation is a serious obstacle in that. Okay? So, what I'm going to do personally is, even though I can't legally own or possess or operate a firearm due to my mental, emotional diagnosis, I'm going to contact my senators and representatives there in Washington, D.C., and ask them to oppose this bill. Of course, me coming from the great democratic state of Hawaii, who knows how far that'll go, but I gotta do something. Even though I can't legally own or operate a handgun personally myself. And I want to encourage you all to do so as well, especially if you're a legal gun owner and you want to see your Second Amendment rights upheld. I want to encourage you to do the same. But that's the video I got for you for now, my hashtag WeStillMUSTunite Familia and Ohana. More and more, as the NWO, the New World Order, comes to completion, is nearing completion, we're seeing more and more of our rights and civil liberties being stripped away. And we got to do something. Sooner or later, we're going to have to rise up. I'm hoping it'll be sooner. But the masses are all stuck in this delusion of COVID-19 being an actual pandemic. So that's where we at right now. Okay, my hashtag WeStillMUSTunite Familia and Ohana. As always, till next video, stay safe, stay vigilant, peace, and aloha.